Hello, this is a session on STEM, human rights and equality. It is about teaching equity in STEAM. The session is prepared by Christina Hadjisoteriou and myself. I am Panagiotis Angelidis, and today in this session I will make a short presentation about STEM, human rights and equality. Equity in education means removing barriers so that all children can reach their academic potential. As we work towards more inclusive classrooms, we must specifically target subject areas in which students with marginalized identities have traditionally experienced an opportunity gap. At the top of that list is the subject of STEAM education. Some ways to start the important work of promoting equity in STEM education will be presented in this session. We are fully aware of the structural and societal barriers, as well as their intersectional nature and effects in the access to STEM education, particularly for women and minorities. It teaches students computational thinking and focuses on the real-world applications of problem solving. STEM education needs to follow an integrated approach with the general vision of science as a common good. Accessibility encompasses access and achievement in all forms and levels of STEM education. Access without discrimination follows from the Convention Against Discrimination in Education. One way of promoting equity in STEM education is because STEAM is typically framed as a Western concept that emphasizes the accomplishments of white men. The reality is that people all over the world have made significant contributions to scientific advancement. If your textbooks credits Copernicus with the theory of planetary motion, bring up that Arab astronomers were actually the basis for this model. The right to STEM education as an inherent aspect of the right to education. All people have rights to STEM education, especially all children and especially those who are marginalized. The rights to information and the right to enjoy the benefits of scientific progress, including the right to contribute to scientific progress. The right to STEAM pursues the goals of acquiring knowledge as an end in itself, of participating as a useful member in society, and of the development of the full personality of learners. The right to STEAM education encompasses the dimensions of availability of and accessibility to science education, the component of acceptability referring to the quality thereof, as well as the dimension of adaptability of STEM education in order to meet the requirements of scientific as well as societal dynamics. In addition to that, if we display a poster of women scientists, we can teach a lesson about a famous scientist with a disability like Stephen Hawking. The more diversity your students see, the more likely they are to believe that the study of science is for them too. STEM education must be acceptable to learners. It needs to be up to date and presented in a way that learners can get full benefit of learning, as well as using science for their own benefit. Acceptability includes the knowledge, content, and research. Knowledge and research which reproduce inequality and therefore regarded as not acceptable. The identities that are co-constructed and reproduced through science and STEAM education and the manner in which individuals are identified, addressed, tokenized, and positioned within STEAM education must be acceptable to the individuals and may not harm the individual's dignity. Acceptability of STEAM education excludes any form of stigmatization by its content, its methodologies, its didactics, or its applications. We tend to view children's talk as disruptive, but in the STEM classroom environment, it's an essential tool for making sense of new ideas. When students are free to communicate using unofficial talk and encouraged to use their home languages, they engage more frequently and can even arrive at deeper understandings. For example, a native Spanish-speaking child studying volcanoes may note that a mountain is Dormida. To think of a mountain as a sleeping volcano is useful and helps them further understand the English word dormant. We call upon all educational institutions to take measures to actively encourage women and persons of underrepresented groups to consider careers in sciences and STEAM education. Educational institutions should take all measures to ensure that STEAM educators at all levels of education should be trained in human rights and should gain awareness of the right to STEAM education. We tend to teach the scientific method as canon. Really, there is no single approach to science, but rather a broad spectrum of practices. Engage students in the doing of science, whether that's making a model of the water cycle or observing and recording the behavior of a class pet. To go along with this rethinking, you must also accept out-of-the-box answers. Encouraging a diversity of perspectives allows for more rigorous solutions and sophisticated learning. Researchers in the field of STEAM should develop new knowledge and technologies being guided by critical reflection as well as by the vision of science as a common good. Novel scientific knowledge should be constantly assessed regarding the reproduction of social inequality. The decision makers in the field of science should provide the frame for responsible research and to care for respective accountability at all levels. Students need to be able to relate to the content. Try to put it in a context they can understand. If you are studying fungi, discuss how yeast is required to make dough rise. This helps students make connections between home, in this case baking, and school, here biology. They begin to see science less as a foreign practice and more as a way to relate to and understand the world around them. Within the responsibility of decision makers in the education system, the knowledge content of STEAM, as it conveyed through teaching material amongst others, should be revised to take inclusiveness and in their respective international standards into account. Furthermore, scientific content should be revised regarding the conditions of social inequality under which the content was developed. Thank you very much.